Today I'm going to show you 10 drone moves that will make any location or subject look cinematic and will make your drone footage look like it was shot by a pro. I'm going to show you how to do each of these moves manually, just using the sticks on the controller, as well as how to use the automated modes on DJI drones to make pulling them off easier. And then at the end, I'm going to take all 10 of these shots and edit them together with music and color grading so that you can see what these 10 drone shots can create. And make sure to stick around until the very end of the video, because at the end I'm going to give you a bonus tip with my best settings for getting more smooth cinematic drone moves. And one more thing, I've put all of these drone moves into a PDF cheat sheet for easy reference when you're out flying, and I'm giving it away completely for free. The link to download it is in the description. Anyway, let's get right into it. So first up, we have the orbit or parallax move. This is one of my favorite drone moves because it creates a lot of movement between your subject and the background or different layers of your scene if you're filming more of a landscape without a definite subject. So to pull the shot off manually, you'll just push your right stick in one direction to get the drone to fly sideways, and then push your left stick in the opposite direction to turn and keep the subject in the center of the frame. And as you can see, there we go, we get a nice seamless orbit around the subject. When you're relatively close to a subject like this, you'll want to fly relatively slowly and turn slowly and make sure that your movements stay nice. What? I just crashed. Like, I had obstacle avoidance turned on. Hold on a second. Oh no, obstacle avoidance was turned off. Don't trust obstacle avoidance when you have it turned off. Oh dear. That is a ways down there. Got a hold of it. Now can I extract it without hurting it? Oh boy. There we go. Motors are hot. I made it. So yeah, retrieved the drone, thankfully no real serious damage. And extra bonus lesson, if you think obstacle avoidance is on, always remember to double check because it just might not be. Anyway, back to the tutorial. Let's see, what was I saying? Oh yes, you're supposed to fly smoothly and importantly not crash. Anyway, if you're not working with a distinct subject like this, more with a landscape, you can do the same thing. You'll just want to speed up your shot a little bit, put it, let's say, into sport mode, fly one direction and just ever so slightly turn in the opposite direction to keep your subject in frame, and you will get a really nice epic shot, something like this. Now when you're just starting out, it may be a little bit difficult to balance both your sideways movement and your yaw to keep the subject in the frame and make that shot really smooth. So to make it easier, you can use spotlight mode on most DJI drones. So to do that, you'll just drag a box around the subject to select it, and then click on POI, point of interest mode, select which direction you want it to go and how fast you want it to go. You can just drag it to go either left or right, all the way from slow to fast. Here we're going to go about medium speed. Start recording and hit go, and the drone will automatically fly in a circle around you and get a nice cinematic orbit without you having to do anything extra. And bonus points if you have a drone with a second camera like the Air 3 or Mavic 3 Pro. You can just go ahead and switch to that 3x telecamera and select your subject, select which direction you want it to go, and hit go, hit record. And again, you will get a nice cinematic shot, but this time you will get even more accentuated parallax because you are zooming in on the subject, and it makes the background appear to move much faster in relation to the subject. And sometimes for even a little bit more control with orbit shots, I like to just use spotlight mode to select the subject, and instead of hitting point of interest, we'll just go ahead and manually fly the drone to the left or right, but we'll use spotlight mode to make sure that the drone is in the center of the frame as we fly left and right. And this allows you to also pull back further away from your subject as you orbit it, or rise up as you orbit it, and just create a little bit more complex and dynamic moves without having to manage as many stick inputs at the same time. And after all that drama, cinematic drone move number 2 is the pull back and tilt up shot. To pull this shot up, we'll position the drone a little bit above and in front of our subject with the camera tilted down at the subject, and then we're going to slowly fly the drone backwards while tilting the camera up to keep it centered in the frame.
And as we do that, it will reveal the whole landscape and make a beautiful drone shot. Now, as you can see there, it is pretty challenging to do this manually, to coordinate the gimbal movement and how fast you're flying backwards and keep the subject in the frame, especially because how much gimbal tilt you need to apply changes as you get further back, because you don't need to tilt the gimbal up as fast to keep it in the frame when you're further away. So this is another great use of spotlight mode on DJI drones. So instead of doing it all manually, we'll just bring the drone right back in here, same setup, have it slightly tilted down, and instead of doing it all manually, we're just going to drag a box around me right here, make sure I am well centered up. And instead of switching to point of interest mode here, we're just gonna stay on spotlight, so it simply keeps me centered in the frame, and then pull back on the right stick to fly the drone backwards. And as you can see, it just keeps me automatically perfectly centered up in the frame as we fly backwards. And bonus tip for this move as well, you can simply fly the drone forwards instead of backwards, and you get instead a push-in tilt-down shot, which looks really epic as well. Drone move number 3 is the rise up shot. For this shot, you'll just start out close to the ground and just simply push up on your left stick on the throttle to gain altitude, and as you gain altitude, it will reveal more and more of the whole landscape. And to add an extra little twist to the shot, we're gonna drive our car under the drone as it rises. So we've got the drone here just a few feet off the ground, and I'm going to start raising up, and we're going to start driving forward here, and as we go, we're going to pretty quickly end up driving right into the frame as we rise up and reveal more and more of the landscape. And there you go, there's your rise up shot. It's a very simple drone shot to pull off, but very effective and cinematic. Drone shot number 4 is the follow shot. And for this shot, you'll basically just get behind some kind of a subject that's moving. In this case, we're going to be following our car. You could also follow a person or a boat or anything like that, and just fly along right behind it. So first of all, to pull off the shot manually, we'll just put the drone right behind our car, and we'll go ahead and start our shot and start driving. And then we'll just go ahead and push forward on the right stick to go forward and just adjust our speed to keep the car pretty close to the lower third of our grid lines. Keep it nicely framed up like that. And we'll just follow along here. Now we're coming to some trees, so I'm gonna pop up over them so that I don't hit them, and I'm actually gonna tilt the camera down. As I follow, this can add a little bit of extra spice to your shot if you go up and tilt the camera down. And as you can see, now we're doing the same thing, following along just from a little bit higher perspective. And if you fly a little bit faster than your subject and tilt the camera down, as you come right over the subject and follow it, that can make an even more epic shot, even though it is a little bit harder to pull off. So the second way we can do this is automatically with ActiveTrack, and to do that, we'll just draw a little box right around our car and then just click on ActiveShots. On older drones, this will be called ActiveTrack, and we'll just select manual and hit go and hit record, and then we can start driving. And as you can see, the drone will just automatically follow the car without you having to do anything. Now, I actually typically prefer to have the drone follow manually many times, unless I'm driving instead of just riding along in the car, because I have a little bit more control of exactly where the car ends up in the frame. I can do some of those more fun things like catching up to the car, letting the car get ahead a little bit, whereas when it's just automatically following me, it's a little bit harder to do. Now, on newer drones like the Air 3 and Mini 4 Pro, you can spice it up a little bit by going over here to this circle on the right side with a car in it, and you can just drag your finger around from behind over here, let's say to the right side. And while tracking the car, it will start to orbit over to the right side and get a nice little cinematic parallax tracking shot. And drone shot number 5 is what I like to call the rocket with a twist. Literally with a twist, because we're going to twist the drone as we rise up to add a little bit of extra interest to the shot. And to have something interesting to shoot for that shot, I'm going to go and lay down out in the middle of these bushes. So here I am laying on this rock. Is it comfortable? No. but if it makes a good shot, it will be worth it. Here we are using an orbit around me, but that's not the main point. So to get our rocket shot, we're going to first of all bring the drone straight over our subject here and down nice and low so that it pretty much fills up the frame. Get it nice and centered. To make this easier, you can go here into the settings, over to camera, scroll down, and enable the center marker so that you can see exactly where the center of your frame is. Then make sure the camera gimbal is pointed straight down, so that when your subject is centered, you are actually straight over them. Then we'll offset this a little bit from exactly where we want to be when our shot is finished. And then we're going to simply just push up on the throttle stick and yaw the drone a little bit as well as we go up. And there you have your rocket with a twist. And drone move number 6 is the push in turn. For this shot, you'll basically be flying forward, but instead of just flying straight forward, you'll be slowly turning the drone to the left or right and kind of pan across the landscape. Many times what beginner drone pilots will do is just simply turn the yaw stick left or right and just spin their drone around in a pretty dizzying fashion that really does not look very good. It's much better to simply fly the drone forward like this. Many times it's great to put it in sport mode if you're a good ways up to get the drone going a little bit faster, and then just start to slowly yaw the drone and turn as you fly forward and show off that landscape. And you don't want to turn the drone too fast, otherwise, again, it just kind of becomes dizzying and nauseating. But if you just add a slow turn to your push-in shots, it will both add interest to a push-in and let you pan across the landscape without it becoming dizzying. Next up, drone move number 7 is the fly over reveal. For this drone shot, you'll just find something like a line of trees or the edge of a mountain or a building and fly over it to reveal what's behind. So here we have the edge of this mountain ridge, mountain plateau. So we're just gonna flip the drone into sport mode and just push forward on our right stick to go at full speed, 45 miles per hour, right over the edge of this ridge line. And as you can see, we are just revealing the beautiful valley on the other side of the edge of the mountain. And we can get an even more dramatic effect by lowering the drone's altitude down to where we are just a relatively few feet off the ground, and then again doing the same thing in sport mode, flooring it full speed ahead. And as we zip out over the edge here, we even more quickly reveal the valley behind it. And that is just a very effective way to add dynamic motion and interest to your shots by flying past something to reveal what's behind. And moving on to cinematic drone move number 8, which is flying low and fast. The essence of this drone move is basically flying fast and low to the ground, even between some obstacles, to give the sense of everything just rushing by you at high speed. And where I'm going to be doing this shot is going to be in a pretty tight space, flying out this little trail. And it's a bit more challenging, it's a bit tighter, has a few more obstacles than I would recommend if you're just starting out and don't have a whole lot of experience in flying drones. But all of the same principles will apply whether you're flying through a super tight area with a lot of obstacles or more out in the open close to the ground. So first of all, we are going to bring our drone right down in here, nice and close and low. And what you want to do is line up a nice clear line of sight behind the drone so that you can see that as it flies straight forward, there's nothing that it's going to run into. It can fly straight out into the open. And you can also look on your controller screen. Again, you'll want to have that center marker turned on so that you can see exactly where the center is. Make sure that is also flying straight out into a clear area. But especially in super tight places like this, I don't entirely trust the screen, so I like to be directly behind the drone with that clear line of sight so I can visually confirm it's not going to hit anything. Now we could try to fly this with obstacle avoidance on, and I'm going to go ahead and do that so that you can see how that will go. It's going to kind of weave back and forth and pop up a bit and get not too bad shot, but it does bounce around a lot, and that doesn't look super great and professional in the final video. So instead, what I'm going to do, and this is again a little bit risky, but if you do it carefully, you should be able to pull it off without any bad results, is to go here into the settings and actually turn off obstacle avoidance. That's how I had obstacle avoidance turned off and crashed back on the first drone move. But another way to do it, and what I actually do more often, is just leave obstacle avoidance on in normal mode and actually switch over here into sport mode. So once you've got your line of sight all clear and lined up, you'll just want to go ahead and start flying out through here. The first time is generally good to go relatively slowly and keep an eye on the drone, make sure that it's not hitting into anything. And these drones, if everything is working right, the GPS should keep them on exactly the same track as long as you only push on your right stick forward and backward. And so here now I'm flying back in nice and fast. And now we're going to do our second shot, which is going to be our main real shot here, flying quite a bit faster on out over everything. So here we go. Hopefully we don't hit anything. And there we go. Beautiful drone shot. Now again, this is kind of risky, especially in such a tight area, but as you can see, if you're careful, you can pull it off. And if you're doing it in a wider area without so many obstacles, without flying through sort of a little tunnel of trees, it'll be a lot easier and you'll be a lot less likely to crash. Cinematic drone move number 9 is the rising orbit. This is simply an orbit shot, but with the addition of pushing up on the left stick to ascend as you do the orbit shot. So to do it manually here, I'm going to push my right stick over to the right and my left stick to the left to get a nice orbit around this pile of rocks, and then I'm just going to push the left stick up to slowly ascend and reveal the landscape as we go around here. Now as you can see, as we went up, our target point that we're orbiting around, this pile of rocks, went down in the frame. And so if we want to keep that from happening, as we do our orbit and ascend, we can also tilt the gimbal down a little bit to keep everything nicely framed up. Now, as with some of the shots we did before, it can be a bit tricky to coordinate all those moves, especially if you're just starting out. So we can just drag a box around our subject there, and we can start to move it to the side a little bit, and it should turn this into a GPS point because this is just a static object that we're filming. There we go. Now it is a GPS point, which will make it so that you get a lot more consistent of an orbit around it than if it's just doing visual tracking. So we're just going to push our right stick to the right to start orbiting around it, and then push up on the left stick to ascend. And there, with minimal effort, not having to coordinate the gimbal tilt wheel or any of that, we've got a nice cinematic rising orbit shot. And finally, cinematic drone move number 10 is the tilt up reveal. For this shot, we're basically going to start out with the camera pointed straight down or close to straight down, and then tilt it up as we fly forward to reveal the whole scene. So first of all, you'll want to get your drone all in position, get the shot nicely framed up how you want it to look. Once you've tilted the camera up to level, get your settings all dialed in so that you have the right exposure and all of that. And then we'll go ahead and start recording. We'll tilt our camera down. You don't have to tilt your camera quite straight down. Many times that can be too much of a tilt up. So for this shot, I'll go about negative 50 degrees, 47 degrees. And then you're just gonna want to flip the drone into sport mode, make sure that there's nothing in front of the drone that you might run into, and just full throttle the drone forward. And then as we go forward here, I'm going to now start to slowly tilt the gimbal up, and then we're going to slowly ease out of that as we hit our original composition on the horizon. And there you have your tilt up reveal shot. This is a great way to introduce a new location or even start a video. And those are the top 10 cinematic drone moves to help you fly like a pro. And so now I've taken and edited together all of those shots that we got, added some music, sound effects, color grading, all those things that help to make drone videos cinematic. And so we're gonna play that sequence now so that you can see what all of these drone moves can produce.
The wilderness. A place to explore. A place to be. To the great outdoors.
And if you've enjoyed this video and want to keep on learning, I've put together a completely free drone filmmaking training where I share my top 10 secrets to cinematic drone shots, covering things like composition, editing, color grading, and a whole lot more. and the link to that is down in the description. And if you want to go even deeper, I have an entire 10-hour drone filmmaking course with over 60 tutorials like this, where I go in depth into everything you need to know to create pro-level drone videos. And you can check all of that out at flyingfilmmakerpro.com, or it'll also be linked down in the description. And finally, just for those of you who stuck around until the very end, there are a couple settings that you'll want to change to get the smoothest shots out of your drone. The settings I'm going to show you are for my Air 3, but they're also going to apply for most other DJI drones. So the settings we'll want to change are our gain and expo tuning settings. And so to access these settings, we'll just go here into the settings menu, click on control, scroll down and click on gain and expo tuning. And here we can set the settings separately for Cine mode, normal, and sport mode. I don't really use Cine mode all that much, so we're going to focus on normal and sport mode here. In normal mode, I have the max horizontal, max ascent, and max descent speeds all set to their maximum, so I can fly as fast as the drone will let me. And then I have max angular velocity set to 70 degrees a second, yaw smoothness set to 14, brake sensitivity at 100, and then the expo settings up down is at 0.25, yaw is at 0.15, and pitch roll is at 0.2. And then under gimbal, the max control speed is 16 degrees a second and tilt smoothness is 10. And then switching over to sport mode, again, max horizontal, max ascent, and max descent speed are all at the max. And then max angular velocity is 120 degrees per second, yaw smoothness is 12, again, brake sensitivity is 100. Then coming down here to expo, up down is 0.3, yaw is 0.15, pitch roll is 0.25, and under gimbal, max control speed is 25 degrees a second, and tilt smoothness is 15. As always, if you've enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe for more videos just like it, and we'll see you in the next one.